President Bola Tinubu on Thursday urged the government of the People's Republic of China to increase the $2 billion currency swap between Nigeria and China to enhance trade between the two countries. He also called for an upward review of the $50 billion aid package for Africa, which China's President Xi Jinping announced last year. China and Nigeria recently renewed their currency swap agreement, valued at 15 billion yuan, approximately $2 billion, to enhance trade and investment. Receiving the Minister of Foreign Affairs of China, Wang Yi, at the State House Abuja, the president said increasing the level of currency swaps will speed up the infrastructural development in Nigeria and deepen the strategic bilateral relations. Responding, Yi said Chinese investments in the country would focus on employment generation and infrastructural development. He said the Chinese National Development Bank had started funding some development projects.
Under the strategic planning of President Xi Jinping and President Tinubu, China-Nigeria relations have achieved three major outcomes. First, we have achieved a new leap in the characterization of our relations. Our two presidents jointly announced the elevation of China-Nigeria relations to a comprehensive strategic partnership. Second, we have worked together to establish a new platform. The first plenary session of the Intergovernmental Committee between China and Nigeria has been successfully held, contributing to the elevation in quality of our cooperation. Third, our cooperation at the international arena has reached new heights. Our two sides have coordinated closely in international and regional affairs and worked together for the collective rise, development, and vitalization of the Global South. Over more than half a century since the establishment of diplomatic ties, no matter how changes occur in the international landscape, China and Nigeria have always, in the spirit of mutual respect and equality, deepened our friendship and pursued practical cooperation.
The partnership reflects our shared vision, the shared vision of our two nations, to foster economic growth, sustainable development, and mutual prosperity. So I would say that the goal is to improve the livelihood of our peoples. And this, of course, is the vision and commitment of the founder of modern China, Sun Yat-sen, President Xi Jinping, and our very own President Bola Tinubu. So they share the same vision when it comes to this.
Now joining us via Zoom to give an insight on this is the, of course, Executive Director of Grassroots Center for Rights and Civic Orientation, Amsri Ajanaku. Good evening and thank you for joining us.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's good to have you. Now, we've seen President Bola Tinubu make, great efforts to get a lot of investment for Nigeria. But what would you say about the process of it? Would you say that they have been, politically right and smart decision in order to not find ourselves in a situation where it's not really favorable for the country when it comes to the agreements and the MOU signing?
Yes, so when we look at President Tinubu's foreign policy objectives, one of his foreign policy objectives talks about driving economic development. And I mean, he said that in his inaugural speech on May 29, 2023. And we have seen him, try to get very close to China. Last year, he was in China and he expressed a lot of admiration for the Chinese model of economic development. And he talked about, Chinese innovation, Chinese infrastructure, and, how he wants to replicate that in Nigeria. And so looking at the push now for the currency swap, an increase in the currency swap, and also looking at the global dynamics, the facts of sometimes what people have criticized to be the over-reliance on, the dollar. I think that would be a step in the right direction because trade between Nigeria and China has grown in leaps and bounds, and as such, we want to have a kind of model in place that would ensure that our currency is not dissipated as a result of dollar being in between Nigeria and Chinese trade. So on that score, I think that's a politically wise decision. But there is also a downside to some of the discussions around the opacity of Chinese development assistance, and that has been one of our concerns in civil society. Many of these development initiatives are opaque, and citizens don't get to see what the objectives are on the ground in order to monitor them sufficiently and ensure that the right things are done.
I mean, talking about these concerns, we've seen Chinese intervention in other African countries, talking about East Africa. Would you say that you feel safe with the level of, relationship, bilateral relationship happening between Nigeria and China, when sometimes we've seen a really bad outcome for African countries at the other end of these major agreements?
Yes, so this is where I believe strongly that we need to bring the pressure to bear, because one of the concerns with China's Belt and Road Initiative, which is more like the signature project that the Chinese have put forward as their own form of development assistance in Africa and development intervention in Africa. Those projects have been fraught with a lot of lack of transparency, lack of accountability, the fact that people really don't know the value for money components, even though on the other hand, you would say the infrastructure that is being proposed or that have been done with some of those initiatives are critically and vitally needed infrastructure. We cannot run away from that those infrastructure are vitally needed in those countries. But on the flip side, it takes citizen pressure from civil society to ask very fundamental questions about what are the details of these agreements, what are the details of these loans we are taking, what is the give, or what Nigeria is giving, or what Nigeria would be trading off in terms of how it these various agreements and all of that. I think that is what is really not clear to the average citizen, which we must do our part in trying to throw more light on that, bring it to the knowledge of citizens so that they can in turn monitor these projects, for example, and ensure that there is value for money.
All right. I appreciate you. Thank you so much, Ansfree Ajanaku. We hope we get to see the better side of this for the country.